Have you ever walked out of a courtroom or a mediation or even a dinner with friends, shaking your head because everyone else thinks that your ex is so charming and reasonable, while you know that you are fighting for your life against a monster they can't see? That feeling, that isolation, is exactly why you need to watch this episode. If you feel like you're the only one who sees the truth, stay tuned because you are about to get the validation you have been waiting for. So welcome back. Welcome to Divorcing Strong, the podcast that pulls no punches when it comes to divorce. I'm Becky Sampson, better known as Bulldog Becky Brockovich, and I'm here to give you the straight talk, the strategies, and the subpoena secrets you won't hear anywhere else. With expert guests and proven advice, you'll learn your rights, your options, and gain your power that encourages a fair and equitable outcome. Divorce doesn't have to break you. It can build you. Let's get to it. All right, let's get to it, you guys. This is a long day. I have actually literally got 5 podcasts today, 3 that I am hosting and 2 that I'm guesting. And so, but you know, one of the things I love about what I do is I get to connect with so many amazing people across the country that have expertise, as I always say, to help you navigate through the divorce space. I don't know why my backdrop is freaking out today, but I like imperfect, perfect action. So there we go. So I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Divorcing Strong podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Becky Sampson. And I want you to know that even though a lot of the conversations that we're having today in these episodes are really heavy, that I always want you to know that there's hope out there. There's resources, there's people who are passionately trying to reach you and wanting to support you through something that you may not even fully understand the difficulties of what you're facing. But I'm hoping that today, after this episode, you will understand and be able to connect the dots when it comes to that being in a relationship with a narcissist or someone that carries those kind of behaviors. You'll be able to understand more fully so that you can realize it has less to do with you and more about them and how to really navigate those crazy waters. So on today's episode of Divorcing Strong, we are tackling the silent epidemic of the modern divorce system, hidden assets. And we also are talking about the legal system and how it's splitting the assets and what happens when you are divorcing someone who's primarily, their goal is to destroy you and your reality. Today's guest argues that while they may not see it, you do. And then that is enough to start rebuilding. I'm joined by Tracy A. Malone. She is a powerhouse in the recovery space, a narcissistic abuse expert, and the founder of SureThriver. After navigating her own high conflict divorce, she built a resource network that now reaches millions of people across 100 countries. She is the best-selling author of Divorcing a Narcissist. You can't make this shit up. And her groundbreaking new book, Estranged by Lies. Today, we aren't just talking about surviving the court process. We're talking about how to stop the lies from defining your future. So Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Becky.
You're so welcome. I was just telling my husband a minute ago while he was on his lunch break, I'm like, I love connecting with amazing people. And you are one. I know we just barely met, but I know the work that you're doing is so important to be able to help people connect the dots and understand this craziness that's out there right now, this epidemic. So before we dive into that, kind of tell us your backstory, what got you to this point and what makes you passionate about what you do now in supporting people.
Sure. I had a divorce, actually 2 divorces, and didn't know what the word narcissist was. No one ever said it, not my therapist, not anybody. The judge did say it was the most tortured divorce case in our town's history, but no one ever pointed me to what the heck is happening here. And
how long ago was that, by the way? How long ago was your divorce?
12 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was before kind of all of this stuff. Yeah.
It was early. I was telling someone this morning, I could have counted the amount of YouTubers on both hands. That was kind of it. And, I had a lot to learn, and it was post-divorce, but I started support groups for myself. I was like, I'm going to do one in Boulder, Colorado. And then that got so crowded that the library would yell at us because we couldn't have too many. So I'd had to have a second location. And I was doing for about 5 years, about 70 people a month.
Wow.
And I learned it's not just divorce. It's your mother, it's your father. And then I just kept reading feverishly to gobble it up. And I did realize the reason I married two of them was because I didn't know what this was, regardless of my family being raised by them. So I was used to abuse. I was used to gaslighting. I was used to ghosting. That was what we call our family vacation. Oh, don't worry, they'll be back. That's what we always do, and so I had a lot of learning, a lot of healing, and never imagined I'd be where I am today. So I started a website. I'm going to educate everyone. How can I be this old and not know this? And so,
well, what was that? So what was that moment that you really were like your wake up moment that was like, okay, I'm starting to connect the dots. Like I'm starting to really understand this.
I don't know that there was a moment, because with every single book that I read, not only on narcissists, but on the wounds and how to heal them, did I realize how much this had affected me. And so that's where it was just the light bulbs went off, and, putting in context what my family did, what my siblings did. And I was just like, oh my goodness. So I just had to share it and educate. And I started my YouTube channel and podcast, and I'm like, that's me. I'm going to be the educator. So it's been 12 years. So it's good.
I love that you do that. I mean, I realized in being in the self-help industry that not everybody that goes through difficult times wants to turn around and help other people. But I'm always grateful when people are that way. And I know when I was going through my experience, just because I've been a life coach for many years and in the coaching and self-development world, as I told my mom, I said, there's got to be a reason why I'm going through this where I can really serve other people. And at the end, I was like, okay, God, please put me in the positions that I need to and meet the people I need to so that I can help people through it. It's a beautiful space to have this many people coming from their heart and serving from that place. So thank you for doing that. So 12 years ago is really kind of when that whole thing started. What have you say that it's an epidemic? Like, why do you say that? And what do you think is causing that?
Well, I think the awareness, the education, again, back 12 years ago, there was very little. I'm not saying there weren't a lot of books, because I read about 1,000 of them. There was a lot of books, right? But there wasn't as many people talking about it. And so I think when I looked at all of that, I was just like, I could do that. And again, I'd been doing it in the groups, and I can do that. And the more I learned, the more I shared. And as I grew, so did my knowledge, because with each client that you have, whether it's divorce or it's their mother or whatever the situation is, you're seeing what has worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and you're growing, with them as you are understanding. I didn't even know someone could X and do this, right? Or whatever it is, you're like, fill in the blank, but it happens. And so the more you become familiar with all of the horrible things that narcissists can do during a divorce, the better equipped you are to prepare your clients, because lawyers don't care. They see the tactics, they see the things that they're doing, but again, it's not their job to say that's a narcissistic thing. They don't care. So, it's helping people understand how to talk to their lawyers and how to help them get the best from the lawyer. Because if you walk into your lawyer and you're like, he's a narcissist, she's a narcissist, and you're just ranting, they're just like, boom, and they're going to think you're the crazy person. So learning to communicate so that you can communicate what your needs are, not just the story, right?
Well,
The
and
story is not their job.
that's kind of like the intro, right? Like when I was talking about the fact that you really feel so crazy because you see everybody around them, falling for their tactics. So you feel very, very alone, going, well, why is everybody else's experience of them so positive or charming or whatever? And then my experience of them, I shouldn't say that was my experience, but I know some people that have had that, and they feel very alone. Why do you think the legal system often falls victim of that coercive control?
Well, first of all, they're starting to grasp it. They're starting to identify it. The coercive control is starting to make laws in different states. And I hear we had our first man going to jail for this week. So
really,
it's a big thing. But I think, when people are going through this hell, if you would, they don't know often what they're dealing with. My ex-husband literally introduced himself as Prince Charming. Like, he walked around and shook people's hands, and then I became the princess. And he does live in a castle, a 30,000 square foot castle with castle stone turrets. And so he just played this role and played this like charm and sucked me in hook, line, and sinker. And he was not a good person, right?
Yeah, no, I experienced that same thing. I don't think I realized it at the time. But wherever I was weak, like for me, it was dancing. I always wanted my first husband to be a dancer. And my second one was like, I'll take you dancing. He was a dancer, and we'd put on the big dress and the heels. And I was like, I just loved it. And anytime I was struggling, it was kind of like, oh, let's take dancing. Let's get you, back on track. And I didn't see that cycle until much later. And I think that's something that most people don't talk about, which I would love to have you talk about, is the cycle of the abuse and what are the symptoms of, what are the things that you can start connecting the dots if you are married to someone that has those behaviors?
Sure. Again, educating yourself on the red flags. If you think something's just like, that's not right, go and Google, narcissistic red flags, and you'll start to see their behaviors. But the cycle of abuse with a narcissist is something that we have to understand, because that's what confuses people. So we have the idealized stage, which everybody's like, love bombing. Love bombing is part of that. Love bombing is, you're the best thing since sliced bread, and they're going to love on you for the rest of your life. No one's ever been so perfect. And then the next stage is the devalue stage. And this is where you're loading the dishwasher wrong. You didn't put the seat down. You did this wrong. You did that wrong. So it'll always be this little picking and trying to dissect what you're doing, all in the name of love, right? So you're sitting there still loving this person because the love bombing, and when they criticize you, you want to fix it, right? They go for specific types of people, which are people pleasers, codependents, and, spiritual, religious people that believe in forgiveness, right? So they're going to pick that. And then
which makes you a target. I actually just spoke to somebody, to a group of people a couple weeks ago, about this very thing. You are a target for these type of people. And I'm not saying any of those characteristics are bad characteristics. It's just they need to be placed within a healthy relationship, or else you literally become vulnerable of that.
Right. And the cycle is not just one time.
Right.
Like the next one is devalue, discard, right? So we have idealized, devalue, discard. Doesn't mean they're actually discarding you. Eventually they will, but it means you're sleeping on the couch, or I'm going to sit there and give you silent treatment and punish you until you do what I wanted you to do. So that last stage is sort of a mix up. But as soon as the victim pulls away, the narcissist bounce right back into the love bombing, so that you just think, oh, you're right. I this is what I wanted. You're right. Oh, you can do it again. We'll be happy. And they start to promise. That's part of the love bombing cycle as well.
What would you say to the people that when they start the process of divorcing, they finally have decided, hey, I'm going to move, and they hope that they're going to be cooperative. And they're so shocked by the fact that these narcissists or these people with these tendencies are completely cut them off and go in a completely different direction. Like, what advice do you have for them, or how to navigate that? Because that's a real thing.
It's a real thing. And strap on your, safety belt here, because the person you are divorcing is not the person you married. Mm-hmm. You might have seen the traces during the marriage, but this is like completely different, 180 degrees different from who you are. Because when a narcissist divorce, a narcissistic injury happens, which means they're hurt and wounded. And then what happens when that happens is they're going to attack. Mm-hmm. They have to preserve themselves. Like, that's their key thing. Their goal in life is to preserve themselves. And often that means take your money or do other things, but they are just flooding the gates with shock and awe and hoping you'll accept it, right? They know all of it isn't going to stick to the wall, but they will throw accusations. They will say to the court, they will call Child Protective Services. I've had people 20, 30 times where CPS would just knock on the door and go, I know, there's nothing wrong. Okay, we were here, bye. Because narcissists keep on doing that, right? Their wounded egos cause them to get into this place of revenge. And of course, it's all about them, but it's self-protection. And that's why they do the tactics and these horrible things that they do.
Where do you think that low self-esteem comes from?
It depends on what sort of injury, a narcissistic injury they might have had. Because some narcissists are born from a narcissist. My mother was a narcissist, and both my sisters were narcissists. And I was the one that was a rebel, and I didn't really care for all that game. And I ended up being the people pleaser, codependent that just married them, right? Yeah. But when somebody has a narcissistic parent, that's the egg doesn't fall far from the tree. But when you don't have that and you're going, how could they be this? There's usually some kind of trauma that is inbred inside of them that they are trying to protect or trying to not show. Maybe they just feel less than. They don't feel special enough. So they need people to boost that part of them up. And you did the job for a while, but then they might not be as compliant. I think that's a big thing in divorcing a narcissist is when you stop being compliant.
Yep.
They get frustrated, and then they start looking, and then they'll have someone before they're even asking for a divorce.
Yeah, that's the thing that I experienced. And I actually just shared this on a podcast that I was guest on, is that for me, right out of the gate, right after divorce or right after marriage was when the control really ramped up. You're not good enough at this. You're not good at that. You fall short here and there. And I'm sitting there going, I had gone through years of teaching dating classes and all kinds of things. And how did I find myself in this situation? But then it wasn't short of a year where he was like, I want you to sign a false tax return. And the minute I stood up to him and said, look, I'm not doing that. That's not me. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the last straw. It was the last straw where he was like testing me and how controlled I could be. And I'm one of those people, I'm like, don't you tell me what to do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm like, you should have seen this way long ago. And then once I stood up to him, it was within 10 minutes, we need to get divorced, and we need to get divorced fast. So, I mean, he switched like boom. And, and it was definitely putting on the seatbelt from that point on, because it was, and people are shocked when that happens, but they're so used to you just giving in and doing what they want you to do.
Absolutely. And for me, I was conned into the divorce, and we weren't fighting over the house. It was already sold. We weren't fighting over the kid. He was mine. We had $50,000 in the bank from short selling our house, and all we had to do was split that. Have a nice day. And I had $100,000 7-trial court case. For what? What were we fighting over?
I get it.
So that's how but I still have people that were in my original support group. I have one lady right now. We're talking 12 years ago. I think she's at $7 million in her divorce so far, and they're not divorced. Right? When you have a rich narcissist, which I have a whole chapter in my book about rich narcissists and the difference between a rich and a poor narcissist in divorce, is the rich one has the money to destroy you.
I know.
My ex had 5 lawyers at the table. I'm like, who does that? Like, again, am I a criminal? We have nothing to split. It's $25,000. Have a nice day, But now they had to fight and fight and fight. So, when people are in this kind of relationship and they're wondering why me, and for me, I did it twice, And so why me? Why me? When you start to analyze it, again, when we talked about what they're looking for, somebody that doesn't know how to set boundaries, someone with low self-esteem, someone who had been raised by a narcissist and swears they will not be like that, and is kind and loving and giving and forgiving. That's what they're looking for. And so, I got conned so badly by the princess kind of, you're a princess and here you go. They even bought me and had a custom made ring that looked like Princess Diana's sapphire ring. It was beautiful. But that's how they molded this story to hook me. His whole entire family. It wasn't just him. It was a family thing.
I can appreciate the fact that you called it out for what it is. Honestly, I felt the same way when I was going through mine. It's a con job. It really is a con job, and a predator, because it is hard to say this, right? And especially for people mine only lasted for 2 years together, close to that. But for people that have been with them for years and years and years, it's so hard for them to go really, they really do that to me. And they and get to that point where they feel bad. They're like, well, how could I be so stupid to have played along with that for so many years? What would you say to somebody that might be feeling and beating themselves up over the fact that they've been in a long relationship and maybe they've given so much of their life to a relationship that really was a con, was a con job? Did they really love them?
Yeah. And again, sometimes they show love. Again, that stage can last for years until boom, it snaps. Right. So, when I work with people, and I've had one woman have her 50th anniversary while we were divorcing. And so I've had people 30, 40-year marriages, and you're like, wow, that must have been horrible. But you have to look back to that kind of person it is. The one who's forgiving, the one who probably has never seen this kind of beast in the world and just goes, oh, that's just them. And, it says something about you, which we need to have everyone understand. It means you are a loving, giving, caring, tolerant person, right? And when we're getting out of this, we have to learn, what could we have done differently to kind of not vet him better or her, but just get to the point where you know a little bit more and you see some of this. And that comes when we start to set boundaries with a narcissist. Again, we don't even know it's a narcissist, but you're on a date, start there. If they complain and don't like it that you're setting a boundary, even it's I don't like calls after 10 o'clock at night. That's a simple boundary. If someone gets mad at you, off with their head. They should not be if that's going to be a little thing like that, it's only going to get worse.
I know.
They're showing their colors. And so testing them, and I know that sounds like you're going to test them. No, you're just observing. You're going, this is not good. And you're also shouldn't be telling the next person, I was with a narcissist, because that's what happened with my second one. And so therefore he was like, oh, I'll never do any of those things. But then there was this other list that he decided to do instead.
Yep.
Right? So the people who have been with a narcissist for a long time deserve a medal. And it's a medal of love and kindness, because they've tolerated so much, because they thought they could make it work. That's why people stay that many years, it's just them, and it's not all the time. Sometimes they're nice. And so that's what people have to realize, and give yourself a break. I know I had to, because of 2 times and what? We have to understand we were the bait and we have to not be the bait. We have to set those boundaries. We have to say no and test them and see if they get upset. We have to learn to trust better, because a lot of people, I gave trust away. Oh, we work in the same company. How nice. I trust you.
Yep.
You're a big, manager up there, and I'm down here. And you give them trust, right? But we should never give away trust. We have to learn how to trust people and almost evaluate their trust ability.
And trust ourselves, right? Because after we're coming through that and rebuilding, kind of as we're actually just talking about this, rebuilding, what about the SureThriver, the methodology or mindset that you teach?
Well, the SureThriver is a word that is trademarked, and it's survivor and thriver squished together. And basically, I have a definition on my website and in my books that a SureThriver is someone who comes out the other side and gives back. Somebody that is like me, like you, to sit there and go, I'm going to educate. Even if it's a neighbor, even if it's someone at church going through a divorce, you hold their hand and you go, I've been there, or here's a good book, or here's something, right? And that's how people can really give back if they want to.
Do you find a lot of people that you work with do have that passion or not? Kind of like what I talked about. Some people do and some people don't.
Some people have the passion, but it's got to be the right time.
Yes.
Right. Listening to trauma, if you're already in trauma, not a good thing, right? And just getting the knowledge enough to understand how to do all this, certainly they can. But if you are not healed, this is not the work for you, because all I do all day long is listen to trauma. And if you are broken and still healing on your own, everything's going to trigger you, and you're going to end up just as a puddle of water in the corner. So,
yeah, I get that. So, so now your new book that you have actually is about lies, is estrangement and lies. Is that correct?
Yes, it's called Estranged by Lies: How Narcissistic Partners Use Power and Control to Destroy Your Family. And it's for estranged parents of adult children. And some of them have grandchildren, and were great grandparents, had a good relationship, and then pop. I don't care if it's 2 years and you raised my kid every single day, you're done. And this is killing grandparents, and it's killing parents. If they don't even have grandchildren, it's killing parents. It's killing siblings who feel like they've lost their best friend.
So what do you think in society has shifted in a way? And we talked a little bit about this before the show started, but what is actually, where would you put your finger on that is causing this estrangement from families, with whether it's children or grandchildren, away from, because it's happening. You have pretty amazing statistics.
Yeah, it's happening a lot. And I think that I forgot the question.
No, I mean, like, what do you think is the cause of this happening in our society?
It's happening now. Thank you. Yeah. So it's becoming, again, like narcissism became more aware. And if I look at it, and I sometimes blame myself because I have worked with people with narcissistic parents. And if they're sitting there and I'm listening to voicemails of mom scream and drop the F-bomb on them, and I hate your guts, you should go no contact with them. Yeah. So what's happening is this younger generation in the 30s is using that therapy speak. Like, I've got videos about going no contact with your family if in that situation, and they're taking that and they're weaponizing therapy language. They are calling it, they're the victims, right? And they're just pushing this on, and that's how they convert the adult child, going, your parents are so abusive. Did you see how your mother really favors your brother? Were they always like that? Well, you've tolerated a lot. They're so mean to you, right? And it just starts that seed planting, which is part of that love bombing and I'm here for you. I'm the only one that will ever love you this much, right? It's an easy switch, but therapists are also on the hook for this. And there's great evidence that they just don't get educated in it. It's not their fault. They could buy my book, but it's really about learning that this does exist, because when you have a client that is going through this, again, just like we talked about divorcing a narcissist, it is just a pile of coercive control. And some people get no contact. Some people get a happy birthday wish. Some people get nothing, and they are crying all night long and never eating again because of this loss. And it's often unexplained. So that makes it even worse. You watched your grandkids for 5 years every day. You watched them while the parents were at work, and then boom, they're gone with no explanation. And most grandparents are freaking out going, well, what about my grandchild? Are they going to remember me? Do they remember? And it just tortures the parent. So I had to write this second book. It's a big part of my clientele right now, because I have a viral video on YouTube that everybody finds. And so I just had to write it, because there's a lot of books on estrangement, but not with the power and control of someone who is going to coercively control you, manipulate you into thinking that your parents are bad, into thinking that your brother's not safe because they must have loved him more. Just those little tiny seeds that they plant to really make people hate their own parents.
I did a show earlier today about parental alienation and how that's happening. But this is interesting because it's a little bit different. It's not even during the divorce. It's literally even extended families and our societies, whether you're divorced or not, this idea that, hey, you've been damaged somehow and you don't need them in your life. And I'm like, family is a really important thing. However, it's important to know healthy boundaries, but people talk to people a little bit about, like, even their own children that aren't talking to them over years. Like, how do you suggest that they process that?
Well, I think the first thing is teaching them how to regulate themselves, because they are up ruminating all night. They are guilting themselves, self-blaming themselves, especially those that don't know what happened. Your mind wanders, right? And so I think the people that are going through this need education, because if you educate, you can take off some of that self-blame. Oh my gosh, when people watch that viral video, there's like 1,200 comments. Were you looking in my window? That's even what I have on my book. All the people keep leaving these things going, this just described our life exactly, right?
There's the validation, right? Like, you're not alone.
To just go, this is real. This isn't something I did. So getting support. I run support groups, and the power of going, I'm not alone, and we're all struggling for the next 6 weeks together, and we grow. And I teach them hope, and I teach them, all kinds of things that when you are laying there hopeless and you can't get out of bed, you don't know how to find hope, even just a glimmer to get out of bed tomorrow. Right. So
do you do your support groups online? Okay, good. And they can find out information about it on the website below?
On my website, yes.
Okay, awesome. And then do you, the other question I was going to ask you is, what would you say to the people, like we started off with this whole conversation about, sometimes you feel like you're the only one that sees the truth of what's going on. What would you say to them, and how can they feel validated for feeling what they feel instead of feeling crazy?
Well, I think one of the things that would help is, while we have all the things that narcissists do, is if we switch the verbiage to coercive control and we use those terms to describe it, it will help them. I mean, it's a thing, it's not just this, everybody's a narcissist. Now, I do have a narcissistic stamp, but I tell everybody, it doesn't matter what we call them. They are doing the tactics. They are doing everything out of the book, right? So when you have that awareness, you can take a lot of the blame off yourself. And that understanding is what brings you peace. And it might not be immediately, but to understand it and go, oh, that's what happened, right? It's so much more freeing than not like me. oh, I had a bad divorce, but no one ever said that word. No one ever explained to me why it was like a vicious rabid dog attacking me every day. So
Yeah. And I think it's important to get in support groups like you run and other support groups that you feel when you start hearing the stories of other people, you really start going, wow, there's so much more to it, and I'm not alone, because that's just the most difficult. I know one of the things that we talked about on the earlier show was the suicide rate of people coming through divorce because they just feel so lost. And that's exactly the game that these individuals, whether they're men or women doing this, that's exactly what they want. They want you down to this. And they want you to know that you don't matter, and that what you feel and what you see, what you're experiencing isn't real.
Right.
And it very much is real.
Absolutely.
Whether or not, if other people see it or not. And it's just so frustrating when other people don't get it. So that's the validation. I think they need to know that they're not alone.
They need to know they're not alone. They need to know, again, this is what it is. That was that. And when I teach my gaslighting lesson to the parents, they all like have this aha moment. Oh my God, that happened from the beginning. The estrangement might only be this one last year, but everything you just said, Tracy, happened all along. And then they start to see that it wasn't poly perfect at the beginning. It was tolerable, but there was always that little bit of like coercive control, a little bit of power. And so again, learning that helps them. But
Starts opening up that door.
Educate kids in school to understand this kind of control, because every single one of these cases, whether the adult child is a male or a female, and the narc either way, ends up doing everything, as I did in my marriage. You are doing everything, right? You're watching the kids. You have to get a job. They don't have a job, and then you're doing everything. And so I think that adds a layer of frustration to the parents, because your kid is working twice as hard with somebody who, as soon as you get home, throws the baby at you, and now you got to do daddy duty all night long, and start again tomorrow. So they get trapped in a situation, especially when there's kids.
Well, I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I really want people to reach out to you if this is something you definitely are experiencing. You're feeling crazy. I always say to them, like, if you feel like you're going absolutely crazy and nothing makes sense, there's a good chance that you are in a relationship with someone with these tendencies. I don't think any of us are therapists, but once you understand it, you'll better be able to navigate through it and connect those dots. So where do they find you?
My website is narcissistabusesupport.com.
Awesome. And and do you do consultations with people? Do you offer
I
consultations?
just have a start off with an hour, because consultations when you're with a narcissist could be 4 hours to tell me what's going on. So it starts off just with a single session to see if we're a good fit, and we take it from there.
Awesome. And show us your books too. Do you have both of them right there?
I do. So Divorcing Your Narcissist.
Not easy.
You can't make this shit up. And then Estranged by Lies, how they use power and control to destroy your family.
Wow. And those are big books. So there's
They are big books. Yes.
a lot of really, really good stuff in there. So, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And we'll probably have to have you back on, because there's just so much that we can, I think it's important to give people the options of collaborative divorce. And I always say, hey, if you can go that direction, and that's the best you can possibly do. However, when you're in a situation that calls for this kind of abuse, and even through the legal system, because it's hairy and it can be very, very expensive. It's important to have people in your corner that understand and can help you navigate through that. So I appreciate that. So my last question I love to ask my guests is, what does divorcing strong mean to you?
Getting through it alive. Divorcing strong is usually someone with a team. The financial, you need help, especially in the narcissistic thing. You need help in so many different areas, and to be divorcing strong means you've got power and you've got people on your side that are guiding you, and you're not spending $500 and $600 an hour to talk to your lawyer about what they did to you today, right? It's having someone that gets it to say, if they do this, we're going to do that. And so because they're doing this now during the divorce, while there's lawyers and judges looking, I can count on them not reimbursing me and that afterwards. I got to get extra protection. So whatever they're doing, you need to get protection built into the divorce decree or parenting plan to make sure that you're covered, because normal lawyers do not look at this protective language. They go, oh, that's too much. We don't need all that. You don't, but you've seen what my ex has done just in this divorce. I want protection. And they're like, and they don't get it. They actually, I've seen in decrees where it says, oh, don't worry, 4 times in one decree that said, don't worry, if they don't do what we just told them to do, they're in contempt and you can take them back to court.
No, that's, one of the things I will tell you, my experience is contempt of court is nothing. People think, oh yeah, they're in contempt. But no, not when it comes to the legal system. So
I'm trying to find this piece of paper. Here it is. This is the last page of my divorce decree, laminated, because we were fighting over who's going to pay legal fees, right? And it was because we had 7 trials, and every time you're going back, and I'm holding it up for those who can't see it, but the court is unable to determine the large, enormous fees. I say it's a failure to disclose. He never gave paperwork, and we had to keep going back every month. And this is 2012. Whoop.
Witch hunt.
It was a witch hunt for the disclosures he never put in. And so I didn't get legal fees. So he was in contempt 7 times.
Tracy, that's the reason why I do what I do with only subpoenas. So I do subpoenas, stop asking for permission, and go straight for what you need. Because it's just with this type of people, it doesn't serve you at all to try to play nicely in that way. You can still be nice and come from a good place, stay in a good place in dealing with them, but very, very strong boundaries. And to me, what worked for me was putting subpoenas out there, and bam, that's it. I'm done playing the games. Let's get it done. And that's the reason why I was able to settle for a fair and equitable division. But I just like you, we had our day in court way too many times.
Too many times.
So, yes. So thank you for doing what you do. And I look forward to being on your podcast too. And where can they find your podcast, by the way?
YouTube and anywhere a podcast is.
Okay. And what's it called again?
Just put in my name. I have 2 podcasts. One is specifically divorce, and one I mix up with all the other stuff. So
nice. Tracy Malone, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to being on your podcast in about an hour and a half. So grateful to have you. Hold on just 1 second. Thank you. All right. Thanks, you guys, for joining us on another episode of the Divorcing Strong podcast. I'm Becky Sampson. I've been your host. And with Tracy Malone, please look her up on YouTube. Let me tell you, she's all over the place. So if you look at the show notes underneath here, we've got all of her different social medias. Follow her, like her. Reach out to her if you find yourself in that situation where you're dealing with a difficult personality. I mean, we're not therapists, but we absolutely have lived it and gone through it, and you're not alone. That's what I'll say, to leave it with that. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Divorcing Strong podcast. This episode is sponsored by Only Subpoenas, where we make subpoenas simple, powerful, and 100% compliant. If you're having a hard time getting the information you need to settle for a fair and equitable divorce, let us help you. Whether you're an attorney or you're navigating divorce on your own, subpoenas can uncover the truth, secure the evidence you need, and level the playing field. To see how we can help, book an appointment by visiting our website at onlysubpoenas.com.